I'm Alex, 32, and up until last year, I thought I understood what family meant. Not just in theory, in the deep, unshakable sense of knowing that no matter what, you had people behind you. That belief didn't shatter all at once. It cracked slowly, quietly, like ice beneath your feet before plunging you into freezing water. I'd always played the role of the responsible one. My younger brother, Tyler, was the golden boy, charming, reckless, but always forgiven. I used to brush it off. He's just young, my mom would say. He'll find his way, Dad would chime in. Meanwhile, I was out there busting my back, pulling 60-hour weeks in IT consulting, sending money home every month, covering their utility bills, even putting down a used Toyota in their name when their old car broke down. No one asked me to. I just did it. Because that's what family does, right? It started unraveling after my dad got sick. Not critical, but enough to rack up hospital bills. I didn't hesitate. I wired money, covered the gaps insurance didn't handle, even sent extras so mom wouldn't have to stress over groceries. Tyler, of course, didn't pitch in. He was between jobs, a phrase he'd been using since he dropped out of his third attempt at college. Yet somehow, he still had new sneakers, nights out, and a steady stream of selfies from music festivals and beach getaways. I never said anything. Again, I told myself, that's just Tyler. I figured mom and dad knew what I was doing, that they appreciated it. We weren't a family big on words, no tearful thank yous or heartfelt cards. But I thought the quiet nods, the occasional "we're lucky to have you," were enough. Then one weekend, everything shifted. I'd flown in for Dad's follow-up appointment. The atmosphere was oddly tense, even for us. At lunch, I noticed they were careful with what they said around me, exchanging glances, changing the topic when I asked about long-term plans. That night, while they slept, I was using their home computer to check in on my work email. A PDF caught my eye, something labeled Final Will 2024 signed. I hesitated. Then I opened it. And there it was, in plain, soul-punching black and white. Everything. The house, the savings account I'd helped grow with my contributions, even the car I'd technically paid off in full, was willed to Tyler. Not shared, not split, just his. I remember sitting back in the chair, my stomach dropping as if I'd been gut punched. There was even a line in the document that said, "We trust Tyler will take care of his sibling if needed." Take care of me? I stared at that sentence for minutes, feeling my jaw tighten. If needed? After everything I'd done, the bills, the groceries, the countless quiet sacrifices, they thought Tyler would take care of me? Like I was the unreliable one. I felt like a guest in a house I had kept running for years. I didn't confront them. I didn't slam doors or shout. I closed the file, took a slow breath, and I quietly decided I was done. When I got back to my apartment the next day, I made a few calls. First, I stopped the auto payments linked to their utilities. Then I called the bank and updated the vehicle registration. I'd never actually transferred the title to their names. That, at least, was still mine. And finally, I canceled the monthly grocery subscription I'd set up for them. One of those boxes that delivered fresh produce and essentials every 2 weeks. Not out of spite, just a shift. If I wasn't family enough to be trusted or acknowledged, I didn't owe them silent servitude. 3 weeks went by. The silence was deafening. No one called. No check-ins. No, "We haven't seen the bill covered. Is everything all right?" I half wondered if maybe they hadn't noticed. Or worse, maybe they noticed and just assumed I was having a rough patch, that I'd fix it soon. Then came the text. It was from my mom. "Mom, the water's been shut off. Can you check with the provider? We haven't gotten any bills lately." No greeting. No "hope you're well." Just that, like I was still their personal assistant. I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. 100 responses came to mind. Angry ones, sarcastic ones. But I settled on just one. Me. Try asking the son you trust so much. There was a pause. Then the typing bubble appeared and disappeared. Then again. Eventually, a single response came. "Mom, what's that supposed to mean?" I didn't reply. For days after that, I felt strangely hollow. Not angry, just numb. Like I'd finally accepted something I'd been refusing to see for years. That my role in the family was never really about being loved. It was about being useful. Tyler finally called me a week later. His tone was casual, like we were old buddies catching up. "Hey, man, Mom said you're being kind of weird lately. Everything okay?" I nearly laughed. You mean since I found out you're inheriting everything and I'm not even worth a phone call? There was a pause. Then he chuckled, like I'd made a dumb joke. Come on, dude, you know how it is. They just want to make sure things stay simple. You're good. You've got your job, your own place. I'm still figuring stuff out. Still figuring stuff out. At 29. Right, I said flatly. Well, good luck with the water bill. And I hung up. That night, I sat in my apartment, the one I'd furnished myself, paid for myself, maintained myself, and felt a strange calm settle over me. Not peace, but clarity. I didn't know them anymore. Not my time, not my money, not even my silence. And I hadn't even touched the car situation yet. Tyler didn't call again. Not right away. In fact, it went eerily quiet for another week, like the calm before a storm. I figured maybe they were finally realizing I wasn't bluffing, that they'd have to take care of their own mess for once. But deep down, I knew them too well. I knew silence wasn't surrender. It was regrouping. It was on a Tuesday evening, right as I sat down with some leftover pad thai, that my phone rang. It was my dad. That was rare. Even before all this, he wasn't much of a phone guy. He preferred to speak through short, one-word answers, grunts, or nods of vague approval. So for him to call, actually call, meant something was up. Alex, he said, voice tired, maybe even hoarse. We've been having some issues. I didn't say anything. The electric company says we're 3 weeks overdue. The gas is about to go too. And now they're saying the car's registration lapsed. Your mom said you were handling that. I said calmly. Until I found out you left everything to Tyler. There was a pause. I could hear his breathing, slow, shallow, on the other end. Then a tired sigh. It's not like that, isn't it? I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch between us. You wrote me out of everything. Even the car. The one I bought you. You didn't even ask. We didn't think you'd need anything, he said, almost defensively. You've always been independent. Tyler, he's different. He struggles. That's not my fault, I snapped. I hadn't meant to raise my voice, but the words came out hot, bitter. You know how many times I struggled, too? You just never noticed. Or maybe you did, but it was easier to pretend I was fine. There was another long pause. I paid for that car. I paid your bills. I kept things running. And all I ever got back was a nod, or some half-hearted thanks. And now that things are falling apart, you come to me like it's my job to fix it. I could hear something shifting in his voice when he replied. Not quite anger, not quite regret. Something tired. We didn't mean to hurt you. Yeah, I said quietly. But you did anyway. I ended the call without waiting for a response. I didn't feel good about it. I wasn't raised to hang up on my father. But at that point, the weight of pretending everything was fine had become unbearable. 2 days later, I got an email from the DMV. The car had been flagged for expired tags, and someone had attempted to renew the registration, but the system showed I was still the legal owner. They couldn't proceed without my signature. I smiled when I saw that. Not because I wanted to be petty, but because it reminded me I still had a sliver of control in a situation that had otherwise made me feel completely discarded. That same afternoon, I drove to the DMV and filed the paperwork to have the car reclaimed. I'd never technically transferred the ownership, so it was still under my name. I even paid the towing fee to have it picked up from their driveway. I could only imagine their faces when the tow truck pulled in, hooked up the car, and drove off without a single word. They must have called Tyler, thinking he could smooth things over. But Tyler didn't have a leg to stand on. 3 hours later, he texted me. Tyler, what is wrong with you, man? They took the car. That was mom and dad's. Me, no. It was mine. Check the title. Tyler, they needed that. How could you be so cold? Me. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you. No reply. I didn't hear from any of them for a while after that. Not even a vague attempt at reconciliation. At first, it made me question myself. Was I going too far? Was I being cruel to people who had simply made a bad decision? But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't about one will. This wasn't about a car or a bill or even Tyler. It was about years of being invisible, of being taken for granted, of being the one who always has it together, so no one had to worry about me. I was useful, not loved. I was dependable, not cherished. And I was done. Then came the breaking point. It was a Sunday morning, about a month after that last text, when I opened my inbox and saw a message from my mom. No greeting, no apology, just, Mom, we're being threatened with foreclosure. Can you help cover the mortgage this month? Just until we get back on our feet. I stared at that message for a long time, the cursor blinking in the reply box like it was daring me to say something, anything. I knew this moment would come, that at some point, they'd come asking for more, that despite cutting me out of everything, they'd still expect me to act like the loyal son. And that's when I made a decision. I didn't respond to the message right away. Instead, I opened up a new document on my laptop. I started typing up a letter, not to them, but to someone else. Someone who'd become a silent player in all this mess without realizing it. It was time to stop being quiet. Time to take back the narrative. The letter wasn't impulsive. If anything, it was something I should have written long ago. I drafted it carefully, taking my time with each sentence, not out of spite, but precision. It wasn't to my parents. It wasn't to Tyler. It was addressed to the family lawyer, the same one listed on the will I'd accidentally stumbled across. Her name was Dana Levington. I'd met her once, briefly, years ago when I'd co-signed a refinancing deal on my parents' house. She likely didn't remember me, but I remembered her. I kept the message brief and professional. Dear Ms. Levington, I recently came across a document labeled Final Will 2024, signed, while visiting my parents, Gary and Marianne. As their eldest son and someone who has financially contributed significantly to the household over the last several years, including mortgage support, vehicle acquisition, and medical expenses, I'd appreciate clarification on whether the attached version is the final and official filing. In particular, I'd like to confirm whether the vehicle listed under their possession is being passed down despite the ownership being solely in my name. Furthermore, I'd appreciate knowing if this will was created under legal advisement, and if there were any conditions or discussions that informed its structure. Respectfully, Alex Monroe. I attached a scanned copy of the will I'd found, hit send, and closed my laptop. Then I waited. I didn't expect a reply right away. Lawyers work slowly, but I wasn't in a rush. Every day that passed added pressure, not to me, but to them. A foreclosure notice isn't something that waits politely. Missed utility bills, car troubles, and a son who suddenly stopped acting like the family ATM. Those things build tension fast. 3 days later, Dana responded. She didn't give away much. Just confirmed that yes, the version I'd found had indeed been signed and filed. Yes, Tyler was the sole beneficiary of all named assets. And yes, she had advised my parents on the matter at their request. There was a line near the end that stuck with me. Your parents felt that Tyler, being in a more vulnerable position, would benefit from additional support and thus preferred to centralize the estate with him. Support, as if being coddled and celebrated for mediocrity was somehow a vulnerable position, as if being reliable and financially independent was a disqualifier from fairness. I didn't reply. There was no point. That same week, Tyler showed up at my place. I'd just gotten home from the gym when I saw him leaning against the railing outside my building, arms crossed, hoodie pulled low over his face like he was trying to look casual. I didn't say anything as I walked up the steps. You serious about all this? He asked. I didn't stop walking. Just unlocked the door and held it open a few inches. You want to talk? Do it inside. Quietly, he followed me in. I could feel the tension buzzing around him like static. He paced the living room while I poured a glass of water and leaned against the kitchen counter. They're falling apart, he said finally. They're not saying it, but it's bad. They haven't been able to make a single payment since you stopped. I've been trying to help, but I'm already behind on rent. I just watched him, waiting. And now they're blaming me, he said, laughing bitterly. Like I told them to leave everything to me. Like this was my idea. Wasn't it? I asked calmly. You didn't object. You didn't even think it was odd that the guy covering all the expenses for years wasn't getting a dime. They said you were fine, he snapped. You had your life together. I just thought. I don't know. Maybe they were planning something separate for you. They weren't, I said. And you knew that. He slumped onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. For a second, I saw it, the scared little brother beneath all the arrogance. But I couldn't afford to soften. Not yet. You want me to fix it? I asked. He looked up, eyes hollow. Can you? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked over to my desk drawer, pulled out a small envelope, and tossed it on the coffee table. Inside were copies of every wire transfer, every receipt, every car payment, and utility bill I'd covered in the last 3 years. I'd compiled them quietly, just in case. Every dollar, every date. It was all there. You can give that to Mom and Dad, I said. Let them see what support really looked like. He picked up the envelope, opened it, and flipped through the documents in stunned silence. I let him. I'm not saying this to gloat, I continued. But you need to understand something. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being useful without being respected. I don't care about the house. I don't care about the savings. But I won't keep paying for people who treat me like a footnote. There was a long pause. Then, quietly, he asked, "So what now?" And that's when the idea hit me. Not out of spite, not even out of revenge, but something sharper, something cleaner, something they'd never see coming. "I'm going to tell the truth," I said simply, "to the people who should have known it all along." He looked confused, but I didn't elaborate, because I had one more card to play, something they'd forgotten, or maybe never realized at all, something public and permanent. I waited 3 more days before I made the final move. By then, the guilt had started to bleed through their silence. My mom had sent me 3 more messages, not apologizing, not even acknowledging what they'd done, but masked pleas wrapped in passive-aggressive tones. "It's been hard lately. We never thought we'd be in this position. Wish things didn't feel so distant between us." That kind of language. The kind that tries to tug at your sense of duty without ever owning up to the betrayal. I ignored them. I was done responding to veiled guilt trips. Because I'd already started writing something else. A letter, yes, but one with a broader audience. See, I'd been helping maintain my parents' small community newsletter for years. Not many people read it, maybe 100 or so neighbors, mostly retirees and quiet couples, but it went out monthly like clockwork. I handled the formatting, updated the events calendar, proofread the submissions. I never asked to be credited, just kept it running smoothly like everything else. This month, the editor had emailed me asking for any final additions before she sent it out. That's when I knew this would be my goodbye. But it wouldn't be silent. I wrote a piece titled, "On Gratitude and What We Leave Behind." It was structured like a personal reflection, a story about growing up in a modest home, about choosing to support the people who raised you, and about what it feels like to learn you were never really valued. I didn't use names, but anyone in that neighborhood who'd known our family, even remotely, would be able to read between the lines. I detailed years of bills covered quietly, a car bought without expectation, illnesses handled financially from afar. And then I wrote this. We assume the ones who never complain are fine, that those who give without asking are simply more stable, more fortunate, more responsible. And maybe they are, but it doesn't mean they don't bleed. It doesn't mean they don't feel the sting when they learn they were only ever seen as a tool, useful, convenient, but never truly chosen. Sometimes, the people we trust the most believe they're entitled to our loyalty without giving back love, fairness, or respect. And eventually, those people learn the difference between quiet gratitude and quiet revenge. The editor emailed me back with just one line. "Beautiful piece. I hope whoever this is about reads it." Oh, they read it. The newsletter was delivered the next morning. My parents' phone must have exploded because by 11 a.m., I had 6 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad, and, bizarrely, 1 from Tyler. I let them all go to voicemail. Mom's message was breathless, almost panicked. "Alex, that was, everyone saw it. You're blowing things out of proportion. This isn't how family handles issues. You're making us look like monsters." Dad's was colder. "You're embarrassing yourself. We didn't mean to hurt you. This is childish. You've made your point." Tyler's, though, his was the one that caught me off guard. "Hey, just so you know, I confronted them. About everything. About the will, the money, the way they talked about you. You're right. You were always the one holding things together. I didn't want to believe it before, but it's obvious now. I'm sorry for not standing up for you sooner." I sat with that voicemail for a long time. It wasn't enough to erase years of imbalance. It didn't undo the damage, but it was something, and more than I ever expected to get from him. Later that afternoon, I got a knock at my door. When I looked through the peephole, I saw my mom, not dressed up, not holding a guilt-offering casserole like she used to. Just her, shoulders hunched, hands wringing a tissue. I didn't open the door, not out of cruelty, but because I wasn't ready. She stood there for a full 5 minutes before finally sliding an envelope through the gap in the frame and leaving quietly. Inside was a letter, handwritten, the first I'd received from her in my adult life. It read, *Alex, if I could undo what we did, I would. Not because of the fallout or the neighbor's stares, but because I finally see the hurt. I didn't know how much we were leaning on you until you stepped away. I didn't know how much silence can scream until you stopped answering. You deserved better. From us, from me. I was wrong to assume you'd always be fine. I was wrong to assume you didn't need to feel chosen, too. Your father is too proud to say it, but he's ashamed. Tyler's been trying to talk sense into him, but it's hard for him to let go of control. I'm not asking for anything. Just forgiveness, maybe. Someday. I'm so sorry. I hope it's not too late. Love. Mom. Asterisk. I didn't cry when I read it. I wish I could say I did, that there was some dramatic flood of emotion and closure. But the truth is, I felt tired. Like a chapter was closing, and I didn't have the energy to re-enter it just yet. Maybe I would eventually. Maybe I'd call her one day. But I wasn't in a rush. In the weeks that followed, the foreclosure warning turned into a final notice. Tyler, to his credit, stepped up. He got a second job, a real one this time, and moved back into the house to help with expenses. I heard through a mutual friend that he'd been using the envelope of receipts I gave him to push for fairness in the will. He'd even called Dana and started the process to formally renounce parts of the inheritance, trying to shift things back to something more balanced. I didn't interfere. I watched from afar as the family I once carried learned how to carry themselves. And for the first time in years, I let myself breathe. One evening, about 2 months after everything unfolded, I got a card in the mail. No return address, just a plain envelope. Inside was a photo. It was the old Toyota, newly washed, sitting in my parents' driveway with a note under the windshield. We're just borrowing it. Thank you for everything. It's still yours when you want it. I smiled. Not because I needed the car back. I didn't. But because, for once, they understood. It wasn't about the car. It never was. It was about finally being seen. And for the first time in a long time, I was.